Hello, I'm Joe and welcome to my curious wall of birds. That'll be $75. And this is a show I like to call
What's Keeping Me Up at Night? Horrible Histories.
And what's been keeping me up at night is the horrible history of everyone lying to me. I grew up on a mind-poisoning cocktail of ghost adventures and ghost hunters, okay?
Is this spirit being a smartass by saying that it was touching my mom?
In fact, I knew who the Warrens were because of Paranormal State. If you're a loser who learnt who the Warrens were through the Conjuring movies, hey, you're a fake fan. Well, I guess you don't really want to be a fan considering some of the stuff that's come out recently. Anyway, and one of the most haunted places in America that both Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters went to was the Winchester Mystery Mansion. I've also seen countless YouTubers ghost hunt in it. So growing up, I honestly did believe that this mansion was owned by Sarah Winchester of Winchester Rifles and that it was built with weird design choices like doors that lead to nothing and staircases that lead to nowhere. It's said that this is a result of Sarah Winchester believing that if she built a house crazy enough and never stopped construction, she would be safe from the entities that she believed were killing her family members one by one, all while trying to desperately contact her loved ones on the other side by participating in like seances and visiting psychics. So you can imagine my disappointment when my brain developed. I did a Google search and found out that it wasn't built that way. There was just a massive earthquake in 1906 that destroyed an entire wing of the mansion and a lot of the upper floors, and Sarah just couldn't be asked to rebuild it. She just repaired what needed to be repaired and just left it. That was it. She wasn't even there very often at that point. She had like a bunch of houses in that area of California. And then I found out that all that crap about her being a mad woman wasn't even true either. It was just the rumor mill working at double speed because she was private, didn't let people nose into her business in the way that high society would have liked, and did terrifying stuff that scared her neighbors, like hiring non-white immigrants and paying them a fair wage. You mean to tell me that the entire story is just a product of misogyny and capitalism?
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's great.
I just can't believe that Sam and Colby would lie to me, their best friend, in this way. And it just made me think, thank God, nothing else I enjoy is framed through that historically inaccurate lens for entertainment, right? This is gonna have to be my ringmaster hat. I don't really have a top hat because I spent this video's budget on my curious wall of birds. And by budget, I mean I got them for free, and I actually spent the budget on shapewear for that white dress in my last video. I went a bit hard on the costuming for that one, so if you haven't seen it, now, before you start running around and screaming, the woke police are here, everyone hide, they're gonna sacrifice our children, the woke police! Just stop and hear me out. Right? First of all, your kid's way too ugly to be sacrificed to anything I worship, so don't even worry about that. Second of all, I didn't know who P.T. Barnum was when I first saw this movie in cinemas in 2017. I was also not really encouraged to critically engage with things back then. In fact, I'm pretty sure I believed that Tracy Turnblad had ended racism. I'm also Australian, which, hey, that might come as a shock to you. So American historical figures in history weren't necessarily things that I knew much about at the time. In that stage of my life, when I saw this film, I loved it. It felt like an actual theatre musical, unlike La La Land, which I had thought was La La Lame at the time. Haven't seen it since, so maybe it is La La Lame, I couldn't tell you. Audiences, like me, loved it. Critics hated it, and the pop-like soundtrack ended up making its way to the top 100. It was undeniably a hit. They even re-released a version of the damn soundtrack sung by pop artists. That's how pop musical theatre this thing was. All I knew in 2017 was that Hugh Jackman and Zac Efron were all in this together, going their own way, and saying it's now or never. And the woke brigade should never take that from me. So when I found out recently that there will be a stage musical of this movie produced by Disney that will debut in England next year, hey, I heard the call. Hey, I've been summoned. And you can imagine my disappointment that with the power of a fully developed brain and Google, I found out that the lens with which this musical is crafted through feels like a parody next to the real life context. I said, hey, maybe other people don't know. I didn't know. I would have actually liked to know the extent of what was being changed in this film, because at the time, the only things I had heard about this P.T. Barnum, this P.T. Barnum, the Greatest Showman, was that he was not necessarily the nicest to his circus animals. I didn't know anything about this stuff. I genuinely thought going into this video that it would be me taking a balanced approach to understanding that Barnum was a product of his own time and that we shouldn't be so black and white about historical figures. But that's not the problem. The problem is not answering the question of if Barnum ever did anything good ever. That's not it. The problem is that the film builds its entire message on values that Barnum actively undermined. On my recent rewatch with the historical context behind me, I actually can't believe that they used Barnum's story for a vehicle for some of the issues the movie deals with. And this is coming from someone who loved the movie. And when I basically finished this entire script, I came across a Reddit thread where I found out you could access a 2015 draft of the script online. And oh boy, what a terrible day to have eyes. I'm a fraud, a charlatan, coarse, vulgar, borderline criminal. That's the good part. Underneath that, I'm nothing. Barely human. A freak. It's good to have you back, PT.
Miss Wheeler, you look like royalty. I'm just an acrobat. No, in the aristocracy of talent, I would say you are a queen. Thanks for looking after things.
I really implore you to stick around for that at the end of the video. Before we start, there are some pretty serious trigger warnings: animal cruelty, racism, slavery, and disability discrimination. So if you're particularly sensitive to these topics, maybe give this one a miss. I also feel the need to say that I'm not a historian. I got my research from multiple sources, making sure everything lines up and is like cross-referenced and stuff. But if I get some details wrong, I apologize. It's not on purpose, and I don't intend on furthering historical misinformation, I promise, okay? This is for entertainment. So without further ado, let the show begin. We open The Greatest Showman with the song The Greatest Show. And look, I can't lie to you. If you give me a silhouette of a man to create mystery, people pounding their feet in time to a song, and a bit of theatrical haze, hey, I'm sat, hey, I'm in my seat, I'm ready to be brainwashed. I am someone who is very susceptible to any kind of propaganda if you just put it in a camp setting, okay? I'll believe anything. Hell, I'll sign up for a damn war. Are there a couple of shots in this scene that move a little slow for the high energy of the song? Sure. Is some of the CGI a crime against humanity? Perhaps. That's quite possible. But then we time travel and we're back in Barnum's childhood. He's the son of a poor tailor and is meeting his future wife Charity as a child while on a house call to her father with his own. Her family's super rich, and upon meeting P.T. Barnum, a child, for the first time, her father slaps him for making his daughter laugh and being poor. Barnum runs off to the beach where Charity finds him and tells him she's going to be sent to a boarding school because of the incident. And to be fair, I would also send my child away if what made her laugh so hard she did a spit take was a little boy putting a piece of fabric in his mouth. I raised you to have a better sense of humor than this, Charity. You will now be sent to clown school! And this is where we get the song, A Million Dreams for the World We're Gonna Make. Also, I'm recording in 1080p, so I am a little bit concerned about that just because I'm scared that I'm gonna punch in and it's just gonna be pixels. Charity and Barnum exchange letters throughout their childhood, while baby Barnum sings about how he's going to build a great life for them and how he's going to be a hoarder. But he's going to be a hoarder for her. Aww. A bit later in life, Charity and he run away together as adults, eventually landing them in NYC, where they have two little girls and dance on the rooftop of their apartment block, just like John Travolta and Christopher Walken in the 2007 Hairspray movie, which was how I got introduced to both those actors, by the way. And to this day, every time I see John Travolta not dressed as Edna Turnblad, it's like, what happened, Edna? What have they done to you? One night, Barnum comes home from work after a long day of being told that the company he works for has gone bankrupt from 100% of their ships sinking to the bottom of the ocean, and oops, it's one of his daughter's birthdays. Maybe don't tell her about the ships, but he does make her a wishing machine, which is cute. I wish I could multitask the way that Hugh Jackman does in this scene. The birthday girl wants to marry Santa Claus, which, hey, I'm not going to comment on that. The other kid is like, I wish for ballet shoes. I wish we weren't poor.
Every night
So, with this historical comparison, I'm going to start off soft for you, okay? These are details that really don't matter that they're changed, but it could be interesting that they've been changed. Charity and Barnum were not on opposite sides of society, and they weren't torn apart by social expectations. He never worked for a shipping company. In fact, his dad owned a few businesses, and he was like a farmer, a shopkeeper, a tailor, and apparently he worked in a tavern sometimes too. So Barnum worked on his family's farm, and then eventually the family owned general store. After his father died, he started his own lottery network in another general store, and he married his wife Charity. Also, he was 19 and she was 21 when they married, and they did not write letters to each other during their childhood. And he had 4 daughters, not 2. Unfortunately, one did pass away before the age of 2. I've seen in multiple places that he either sold off his business because lotteries became illegal in Connecticut and sold the store after that, or he was just really bad with money and purchased too much inventory for the store and was in a ton of debt, and it was just lucky that he got out before the lotteries were illegal. He had a bunch of business ventures as well, including his own newspaper at one point, which is alluded to a little bit in the movie, but it's framed as him seeing discarded newspapers and then selling them as new because he's scrappy. He's a scrappy entrepreneur. In reality, I think he started the paper initially because he wanted to sell more advertising for his lottery, and at one point he even wrote about some church officials in his town in a way that pissed them off pretty bad, so he faced like quite a number of lawsuits and was in jail for like 2 months because of what he wrote. And here's a little tiny bit of scandal to ease you into some of the crazier parts of his life. Charity, his wife, after 44 years of marriage to Barnum, passed away in America while he was over in Europe. And of course, once he was informed of this, he rushed home to America, began planning the funeral for his wife, and once he said goodbye to her at the funeral, he then grieved her deeply for an appropriate amount of time. Just kidding. When he was informed of her death, he rushed to Nancy Fisher's house, who was the 24-year-old daughter of one of his friends that he met during his time touring England in the 1860s. He missed his wife of 44 years' funeral and married the 24-year-old mere months later in a secretive ceremony when he was 64. He apparently was also calling Nancy Fisher his wife over a year before his actual legal wife died. A million dreams for the world we're gonna live. What do you even talk about? What do you even talk about when you were that far apart in age, truly? If I were on a first date with someone with that kind of an age gap with me, I'd be asking questions like, what was it like growing up during the Vietnam War? How did you feel when you watched the first moon landing on television? Hey, how far into your 30s were you when you saw the fall of the Berlin Wall? Barnum was super rich though, and well, that doesn't make it... Well, I don't know if women could have bank accounts yet, so honestly, slay, diva. Anyway, back with the Greatest Showman, Hugh Barnum. His wife Charity is A-okay with being poor, but big man Barnum is not.
This isn't the life I promised you.
But I have everything I want.
He visits a bank trying to get a loan, which he gets by scamming the bank. Classic, love that. But while in the waiting room, he has a run-in with a 22-year-old man named Charles Stratton, played by actor Sam Humphrey, who has skeletal dysplasia. His voice is infamously dubbed to make it lower, which one may ask the question of why that is.
What are you looking at, Flopdoodle?
I cannot find an answer for that anywhere. No one seems to know. No one's made a statement about it, so I don't know. At one point, Google AI summary tried to tell me that it was for historical accuracy purposes, which makes no sense because Charles was like 4 when he was discovered by Barnum. Oh yeah, Barnum loved child labor too. But considering that Humphrey has a naturally higher voice due to his skeletal dysplasia, that decision to swap the voice out, I don't know, it kind of feels weird. Anyway, I'll get more into the real life Charles Stratton in a minute. Movie Barnum takes his $10,000 and builds Barnum's American Museum of Curiosities, which features a guillotine, wax figures, and a ton of taxidermied animals, including an elephant, which I don't know how I feel about that one, considering the real life Barnum, when his main elephant died by getting hit by a freight train and died on the side of the tracks, he had its body mounted and displayed in his museum along with its skeleton right next to it. Here's another fun elephant fact. Barnum also chemically bleached another one of his elephant's skin in order to compete with another guy who had done the same thing, because Barnum had claimed to have a white elephant
elephant, but a white elephant technically isn't white. This is what a white elephant looks like. So everyone was like, oh, it's not white enough. And then Barnum said, hey, that's what it looks like. I don't know what to tell you. And then another guy, across the way was like, I got a great idea. I have a great idea. I've got a real white elephant. And Barnum was like, that's fake. That white elephant has been bleached. So what am I going to do? I'm going to bleach one of my elephants. Yeah. I'm going to put one of my elephants through that. And I'm going to do it and market it like, this is what this guy's done, so I've done it too. And you should come see my real white elephant, not the bleached one. But there is the bleached one there if you want it. History's so fun. Also, in relation to the beginnings of the museum, Barnum actually bought an existing museum that had its own collection and then added his special flair to the existing collection. Like the iconic Fiji mermaid, which was actually a body of a monkey sewn onto the bottom of a fish. I can't lie, when I heard about the Fiji mermaid for the first time, I was like, what, that thing in the S.K. Pierce Haunted Mansion? And then I zoomed out and I thought, why would you know that off the top of your head? It's not that one, even though that one is linked to P.T. Barnum. I didn't even have to Google that. That information just lives in my head. Can't store math or life-saving information in there, but I know the backstory behind that. Why is that? Back in the movie, tickets are not selling too well. Until one of his daughters tells him he's got way too many dead things in his museum and he needs to make money the old-fashioned way, by profiting off the less fortunate and taking advantage of societal prejudices. Of course. The next day he goes to Charles Stratton's house where his mother tries to say that he doesn't exist.
I'm looking for your son.
I don't have a son.
Rough. But Barnum's got into the hospital records somehow and knows she's lying. A couple questions there, but that's fine. I'm guessing this is before HIPAA. When Barnum does have a chat to Charles expresses that he doesn't really want to be laughed at.
You want people to laugh at me.
Good old family man, heart of gold Barnum tells him,
Well, they're laughing anyway, kids, so might as well get paid.
people are already laughing at you. Why not make a profit off it? Thanks, that makes me feel so much better. Sign me up. In real life, Barnum found Charles when he was 4 years old and put him on tour by the time he was 5 years old, but marketed him as 11 years old to make his height more incredible. So he was nowhere near 22 like he was in the movie. Stratton's parents were of average stature, but were, and I hate to say this, and you should know that this is not the case for many parents with kids with any type of dwarfism, but Stratton parents were in fact first cousins. History. Barnum himself apparently taught Charles how to perform, like how to do impressions, to dance, sing, all of that. Stratton was then known as General Tom Thumb from then on stage, which was reference to the character from the fairy tale. He was apparently a natural born star and was even able to take an extreme risk and do a comedy act that impressed Queen Victoria, even though the royals were still in the mourning period for her husband's father. But I'll talk about that specific part later on. Trust me, it's a riot.
Well, you're not exactly reaching the top shelf yourself, sweetheart.
He was also apparently entangled in a love triangle with his future wife, Lavinia, and another little person in Barnum's show who was brought on later named George. And Charles bribed Barnum to help him win her affections by saying if they ended up getting married, Barnum could make the wedding a public event and make as much money off it as he wanted. And bada bing, bada boom, married in front of 10,000 people, charging admission. It was also called the fairy wedding. President Lincoln even held a party for them at the White House when they went on their newlywed tour. And this is a fun fact. Barnum made George, the other man in the love triangle, the best man of Stratton, who was marrying the woman he loved, and it apparently f***ed him up so badly he didn't fall in love with anyone for another 16 years. On top of that, Barnum actually marketed the couple as childlike when they were both just like normal adults. Now here's a little bit of nuance that might be a little hard to receive for some people, and I'm not excusing anything that Barnum has done or did in his lifetime, but from his performances with Barnum, Charles became very wealthy, like multiple houses and a yacht wealthy. Barnum and he apparently got along very well his entire life, to the point where they were business partners eventually, and when Barnum fell on bad times financially, Stratton
got him out of trouble. By Charles's own account, he had a good relationship, a fair relationship with Barnum. I understand how things can look from the outside and how things can look from the inside, okay? I get that. And once again, I'm not excusing Barnum's business structure, okay? I'm just telling you how Stratton allegedly said he felt about it. Who is the actual person in this situation? Stratton was so well loved and famous that when he died of a stroke suddenly at 45, his funeral had 20,000 people in attendance to say goodbye to him. That is the real person who is being portrayed in this movie.
What are you looking at, Flopdoodle?
In said movie, now that Barnum has Charles, he begins putting up signs around town to get people that are, quote, unique to join his museum or show or whatever he's doing right now. It's not really explained. I don't know what he's saying. He gets told by a stranger on the street about a bearded lady who was working at a wash house, who apparently can sing like nothing else.
Unique. I would even say beautiful.
Lee posed to make me a lot of money.
They don't understand, but they will.
When I build my mansions off your hard work, how much money I will have. Now, the character in this film is named Letty Lutz, but the real life woman Barnum employed, and I say that very, 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 very loosely, was a bearded 9-month-old named Annie Jones. Okay? Remember what I said about the child labor thing? Oh yeah, Barnum loved child labor too. Now, I'm no scientist, but I'm seeing a pattern here. At one point during her stay with him, she ended up being kidnapped by a phrenologist, which if you didn't know is the thoroughly debunked theory that someone's skull shape determines their mental capacity and personality. So basically like that incel Chad diagram. Annie was actually only at the actual museum for just under 3 years before it burnt down, which, you know, I'll talk about that fire later, but went on tour with the museum after Barnum went into and came out of retirement to start his traveling circus. After Barnum died, Annie actually became one of the first people to stand up to not only the circus she was a part of, but to other circuses and say, hey, maybe the terms freak and freak show are a little hurtful. So it would be great if you stopped that. She was great, all right? Legend. She got married, divorced, married again, and then unfortunately was widowed only 4 years into her new marriage, which she'd left the circus for, and allegedly maybe her last marriage for. The death of her husband prompted her to go back to the circus, and there she continued to perform and advocate for herself and her fellow performers in regards to the word freak. Back in the movie, we go through a list of people who came for an interview for his show, museum, I don't know what they thought they were getting into. And first up, okay, we have Zendaya and her brother, W.D. Wheeler. They're black trapeze artists, and they're like...
You know, people aren't going to like it if you put us on the stage.
Which, I get that we're doing prejudice in this movie, I get it, but is it appropriate to make a race statement through a movie about a guy who, instead of getting $10,000 from a bank to make a shitty wax museum, like in this movie, actually entered into showman success by getting around slavery abolishment laws in New York by leasing an enslaved black woman named Joyce Heth, who he claimed was 161 years old and had cared for George Washington in his youth, and when she died, a year after he took her on her initial tour, hosted a public autopsy where people could pay admission to see it happen, all in the name of proving her age. There's also conflicting information on if she had teeth when he met her or if he pulled out all her teeth before the tour to make her seem older. Why don't we re-race? I wish I'd known that going into the movie. And not to mention, when this movie's reimagined soundtrack with pop artists singing the songs was released, the one song where in the context of the movie it's about having an interracial relationship in a horribly racist time period is sung by 2 white people. I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. What the hell is going on? Like, clearly there isn't actually that much thought going into this. So other than them, you've got the dog man, whose real name was Fendor Jeftichu. Is that how you say it? I'm so sorry. He is from Russia, and he was also known as Jojo the dog-faced boy. And the story that Barnum touted to his audience was that he lived in the wild until he was captured, which nothing says being an equal like being likened to an animal. Anyway, the tattooed man was James F. O'Connell, whose backstory to how he got his tattoos is so unverifiable and so deeply racist, I'm not even going to repeat it. If you want to know, you can do your own research. That can be your homework. But be warned, a lot of the information came from his own autobiography, and like, hey. We then have the world's heaviest man, whose real name, I think, was Chauncey Moreland, but there are a few people around that time with that title, oddly enough, for entertainment purposes. And then finally we have the Irish giant, in reality was named Hugh Murphy. And then in the movie, Barnum breaks out into the song Come Alive. According to Genius's lyric page describing what this song is and the context of it, Barnum sings this song as he helps the others in the circus prepare for the show and not be afraid of the people's reactions.
Well, they're laughing anyway, kids. Might as well get paid.
In this song, he encourages normal people to discover new aspects to everyday life and to use the imagination that transforms something ordinary into something amazing.
Thanks, Genius. This is one of those numbers where I'm like, are the lyrics a little goofy? Yeah. Is a little tone deaf to have a song sung by a hot, talented, rich, white Australian man convincing people who have disabilities that they're beautiful and shouldn't care what people think. Maybe.
Whoa, could I have worded that in a worse way? I doubt it. When I said that, I didn't mean that telling people with disabilities that they're beautiful is the wrong message. That's not my issue. I meant that within the context of the film and media in general, this kind of storyline and the way that it's framing Hugh Barnum or P.T. Jackman, it begins to border on inspiration porn / the able-bodied savior trope because of the messenger, not the message. Okay, I just thought I should clear that up so you didn't think I was a raging psycho.
But I'll be damned if I can't admit that this song would bang on stage. I just spilled my Diet Coke everywhere. Hey, it's under the couch. This is what happens when I try to dance. Oh my god, I'm out of breath with that. That's not good. That's not good at all. How am I gonna join the circus? Honestly, the fact that that didn't happen sooner is quite impressive. After the show, Barnum gets a bad review in the paper from a journalist named Mr. Bennett, who must have a daughter named Elizabeth. Get it? Cause it's a Pride and Prejudice joke. Mr. James Gordon Bennett was a real person, FYI, who ran the New York Herald. However, rather than seeing Barnum, dancing and singing with his troupe of misfits on a stage, he actually got involved with Barnum's antics and criticizing them for, that horrible thing with Joyce Heth. And the depiction of Barnum in the movie reading the bad review joyfully that's like,
Criminal, grading, circus. I like circus.
is semi-true. Barnum was the inventor of all publicity is good publicity, but this crap about
Circus. I like circus.
and then later when he's like,
That word you used to describe my show has a nice ring to it.
he says it like he's never heard the word before. Please, for the love of God, don't make me look up the etymology of the word too late. The origin of the word circus comes from the Latin circus, meaning circle, which came from the Greek circus, which also meant circle. It can be traced back to the 14th century, where the ancient Romans used it for such arenas and areas like Circus Maximus, where they held chariot races and public games. And the modern meaning of the word that Hugh Jackman Barnum had never apparently heard of in 19th century New York was already used for such spectacles thanks to a guy named Philip Astley in the 18th century in London, who used the word for his horse riding performance ring and basically invented the modern circus with acrobats and clowns and stuff. Barnum had nothing to do with the invention of the concept of the circus, nor did Bennett invent that word in his article, unless in this universe Philip Astley never existed and Bennett was like, criminal, grading, a rounded or oval arena lined with tiers of seats used for equestrian and other sports and games, or a rounded open space in a town or city where several streets converge. That's not good reporting, if that's right.
Even if you want to argue that he meant criminal, degrading, a public scene of frenetic, noisy, or confused activity, that still only became an idiom because of Philip Astley's show. And before you ask, yes, I am this fun at parties as well. Anyway, back to the movie. After moving into a big mansion, Barnum and Charity go to their daughter's ballet recital where she's ridiculed by the old money girlies because of how her family got rich.
Ew, something does smell. Oh, I know what it is. Peanuts.
Got him!
We then get introduced to Zephron, playing Philip Carlyle, a young rich play producer and writer who Barnum propositions for a business partnership in the song The Other Side to bring up his own social standing within high society, because that's really all he wants. This song bangs so
hard, even though it's about two rich guys getting richer. Also, Zephron's character is completely made up, just like Zendaya's character is. Did I actually say that she was made up? I'll get to Zephron's character at the end, but just know for now, he's not a historical figure. Zephron helps the circus troupe get an audience with the Queen, and during his announcement, Zendaya is like,
Are we all invited?
and Zephron, the white millionaire savior we all need, sticks it to the establishment by having to say the line, I guess I'll just have to tell the Queen that either all of us go, or none of us will.
Queen of England.
So they all travel to England. Yay! And when the Queen tells Charles, aka General Tom Thumb, that he's even smaller than she imagined, he says,
Well, you're not exactly reaching the top shelf yourself, sweetheart.
man, that voice dubbing is diabolical. Anyway, she laughs. And all is okay in the world. This audience with the Queen did actually happen in real life, but it was only Charles and Barnum who went. And that was after Barnum had made him extremely famous in the US, so he took him on a European tour where he knew that people would spread the word about Charles. Remember when I said he was apparently a natural born star and was even able to take an extreme risk and do a comedy act that impressed Queen Victoria, even though the royals were still in the mourning period for her husband's father? Well, that's what happened. So this comedy routine was one that he had done before. He was also like improving a bit. He got into like a pretend fight with one of the Queen's dogs, and she was like, ah ha ha ha, I love entertainment. And you're 11? You say you're 11? 12, 13, I don't know how many years into Charles's career this was. Back in the movie, at a reception after the private audience with the Queen, we meet Rebecca Ferguson, aka Jenny Lind, and oh boy, do I have some stuff to say about her portrayal in this movie a little bit later. Oh boy, do I ever. The second Jenny Lind rocks up at this reception, Barnum, without any knowledge, any prior knowledge of this woman, is like, I must have her make a ton of money for me and help me gain my rightful place in the minds of upper class society. Of course. Zephron then tells him that she's a famous Swedish opera singer and that she's sold out La Scala a dozen times, not to mention the French opera. Christine, run! Run! If you go back to New York with him, you'll... It all comes back to Phantom of the Opera. I'll never escape. Anyway, Barnum says, hey, how about you make me a ton of money? And she says, I donate all my money to charity. And then Zephron and Hugh Barnum are like, oh my gosh, that is such a great opportunity for publicity. And she's like, oh, I don't do it for publicity. Also, why me? Do you even know my voice? Have you ever even heard me sing? And Barnum says, no, but people come to my show for the pleasure of being hoodwinked. Just once, I'd like to give them something real. That's the actual line, FYI. Not how he delivered it, but I think mine is far better. And it apparently works on her because bada bing bada boom, we get the song Never Enough. Barnum's backstage in New York pushing the circus troupe into the standing room for Jenny's performance so that they're not seen by the upper class socialites.
Where should I put him? Your box?
No, box, no. That's a bit visible.
Visible?
And then Jenny, the Swedish nightingale Lind, starts to sing the song. And while it's not opera, I do see a few parallels. Christine, run as fast as you can. I'll give the movie credit here. They chose to have a different singer sing this instead of Rebecca Ferguson, which I think might have been a good choice if she's supposed to be one of the world's best singers. I mean, I don't know if Rebecca can like sing that well. We're not that close, but the girlie who sang this, Lord Alred, she's got an incredible voice just in general, particularly in this song. She's now been on a few singing shows since this movie and she just cannot win. I don't know why. I haven't seen the shows she's been on. I think she was even on The Voice prior to being the voice in this movie. I'm rooting for you, diva. Jenny Lind was actually a very real person and she did donate the majority of her income to charities. However, the reason she went on tour with Barnum is, it wasn't because he wowed her with his quiet charm and philanthropic sentiment. Rather, she'd actually been approached by a bunch of different people about an American tour, and P.T. Barnum's contract was just the most money, so that's why she went with him. And that's how the partnership started. He had actually
never heard her sing until that first performance. That's actually true. Back in the movie, Bennett and Barnum have another run-in at the after party, and my initial note from my Google Doc about this exchange was, OMG, I love the Mr. Beanit and PT dynamic. They have such a great passive-aggressive vibe. I'm just going to stick with that. That is my comment on their dynamic. At the same reception, Jenny and Barnum have a little kiki about growing up poor and on the outskirts of society before they found their wealth and fame.
I was born out of wedlock, and that brought shame upon my family.
Just before Barnum refuses to let the circus troupe into the reception, clearly out of not wanting to be associated with them for the night in this upper class environment. But instead of saying that rather hurtful thought out loud, he says something even more dehumanizing.
Who's going to pay admission if you're out there for all the world to see? Okay, have a great show.
This is the greatest show.
And from that horrible interaction, we are then gifted every semi-attractive white millennial woman who was once slightly bullied that one time in 2009's favorite self-love anthem. Calm down, I'm kidding mostly. Keala Settle, who plays Letty Lutz in this movie, has an incredible voice. And yeah, when she starts riffing and ad-libbing, I want to stand up. I want to stand up and say, yeah, maybe this is me. Yeah, maybe I'm going to send a flood and I'm going to drown him out. Apparently this is also the song that got the entire movie greenlit, but I don't know if that's true, because I did see it on a random YouTube short this morning, and I will not be fact-checking that. I will be disseminating this information for people to not think critically about. That is what I will be doing here on God's internet. Barnum then goes on tour with Jenny, and Zephron is like, you won't be profitable until like the 40th show, and Barnum's like, don't worry, it's on the credit card. I got a loan. Now if you'll excuse me, I gotta go on tour as my two little girls run after the carriage screaming and crying for me not to go. While that happens, Zephron and Zendaya go to the theater where they run into his parents, who shame him for fraternizing with, quote, which I don't think I need to comment on why that's a horrible thing to say. Zendaya runs back to the circus while Zephron stands up to his parents.
How dare you speak to her like that?
And when he finds her in the ring, he's like, why do you care what they think?
Parading around with the help.
We should just ignore them. We shouldn't have to stick to the status quo. Whoa, whoa. And Zendaya's like,
It's not just that. You never had somebody look at you the way your parents looked at me. The way everyone would look at us.
you know I want you. Why don't we relax? This is leaving my head. I don't know if you can see, but I have like a ligature mark. There you go, little buddy. Look, having a fictional period-related interracial relationship to talk about prejudice isn't necessarily inherently bad storytelling, but it becomes a bit of a choice when it's a movie about a guy who literally leased an enslaved black woman and then charged the public to see her autopsy. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's not the guy's sanitized movie we want to be using as a morality vessel for racial issues. I don't know. Yeah, sure, you could argue that he did come out against slavery later in life, and we love when people change, okay? That's great. Change is good, but he literally began the most successful portion of his career off the back of slavery. So why are we rewriting the stars? But other than that, you know, this song is good, the choreo is fun. It does get a little bit lip syncy with the stunts and stuff, but it's still fun to watch. We then cut back to Barnum and Charity, who are having some marital issues because he is way too success hungry, and this is where we see him like head off on tour with Jenny while his two girls run after him in his carriage, screaming for him not to go, begging him not to leave. I jumped ahead a bit earlier. That's now, not then. I don't know. I just like confusing people. Isn't it fun? Isn't it fun not to know whether or not I'm telling the truth? Hey, a little bit of fun here. We have fun here. We have fun here. Then we get Tightrope sang by Charity, aka Michelle Williams. In this song, we get to see his little girls rapidly losing self-esteem as he misses important events in their lives during Jenny's tour, while his wife sings about how much she loves him and thinks about how having a life with him is The greatest adventure.
Who's going to tell her about Nancy Fish?
Now we get to the juicy bit with Barnum and Jenny Lind in Cincinnati. Ooh. They're reading Mr. Bennett's article about the tour, which is glowing. And then she, the evil temptress, Jenny Lind, dares to try to steal Barnum's heart away from his family.
I've given you the world, haven't I?
And when he rightfully rejects her sinful advances,
I should go.
she quits the tour.
I'm done.
You have to finish the tour.
Must I?
It will ruin me.
When you're careless with other people, Mr. Barnum, you bring ruin upon yourself.
I risked everything.
Well, so did I. It seems we both lost.
Kisses him in front of the camera to destroy his marriage and leaves him in financial ruin.
This historical inaccuracy is the thing I found out about that got me down this rabbit hole of history relating to this movie because it pissed me off so severely. Humor me for a second. All right, riddle me this. Why, in a movie about a man who got his career started by leasing a black slave and then hosting a public autopsy once she died, where he charged admission, is a woman who donated the majority of her earnings to charity, parted ways with Barnum on good terms, and neither bankrupted him nor tried to break up his family, being portrayed as a home-wrecking hussy who financially ruined this good, wholesome family man? Are you fucking kidding me? Once I found that out, I just sat there like, oh, I'm gonna have to learn everything about this history now. I'm gonna have to learn stuff. The reality of the situation is somewhere between Jenny not enjoying the way Barnum marketed her so ruthlessly, but continuing the tour for another year under another manager, or after almost 100 shows, they were both completely over touring to the point where Barnum offered her a pretty good deal to get out of her contract, so she just bought herself out of it. It's one of those things. The truth is somewhere between that. They also both made millions of dollars by today's standards, so no one left in financial ruin. This low-key just feels like they just made Barnum too perfect and they needed like something to break him in a way, but like not in a way where we couldn't root for him. Thus, he actually couldn't cheat on his wife. He's just like metaphorically cheating on his wife with the limelight. On a more silly, goofy, fun note, we are back at the circus now, where a bunch of prejudiced pricks rock up, a fight breaks out, and Barnum's museum burns down. Obviously, that's not what happened in real life. Barnum's museum actually did burn down, but it burned down twice. That's fun, isn't it? In 1865, a fire began in the basement and spread to the rest of the building. There are horrible alleged stories of animals jumping from windows to save themselves only to then be shot dead by police. There's also a story that there were whales in the museum at the time, and I've seen some places that they were either boiled alive or even worse, the employees smashed the tanks to try and douse the flames, but that didn't work, so the whales were just left in their empty tanks to die in the fire. History is so fun.
History is so great.
How did this fire begin? No one really knows. There was a Confederate sympathizer the year prior who apparently tried to start a fire but failed. But with the 1865 fire, it was pretty widely understood that it was a furnace or a boiler in the basement or even a busted gas line from a neighboring building. One of those things. Anyway, it was horrific. There was a lot of animal death, but no human casualties. Barnum rebuilt in another location in New York, and then that burnt down too, apparently caused by a boiler explosion or some kind of chimney problem. After that last fire, he didn't rebuild. He just went into temporary retirement. So unfortunately, neither fire was caused by the Irish giant throwing someone through a poster and then that person starting a fire in the Fly's system. On the Fly's system? I don't know. But back in the movie, Hugh Barnum gets back from tour just in time to see his museum burn down. Let a metaphor. He runs up and they really make a point in the dialogue to say that all the animals got out of the fire safe and have been set free.
The animals! Yeah, we set them free! What else do we do?
Which, you know, after everything I've told you, does feel like a bit of a parody. Does feel like, hey, we're rewriting the stars here. Rewriting the history. There's a joke there somewhere. Zephron then runs back into the flames thinking that Zendaya is trapped inside. Spoiler, she's not. She's A-okay, but uh-oh. That means Zephron is in there looking for someone he'll never find. So what does PT family man with extreme debt he could pass on to his family once he passes away, Barnum, do? Yeah, he looks at his wife and kids in the eyes and then runs into the burning building, risking his life to go and save Zephron. After he goes in front of his kids and wife, the roof collapses. They've just witnessed his death. Just kidding. Luckily for everyone involved, Barnum is a Mary Sue and survives the seemingly unsurvivable, carrying out Zephron, and thank God for that. The next day, as Barnum is picking through the rubble of his museum, in comes Mr. Bennett. This scene is kind of a mess. The first part is infuriating, and the second part makes no sense. They sit on the steps and share a drink together, and Mr. Bennett says, "Putting folks of all kinds on stage with you, all colors, shapes, sizes, presenting them as equals. Why, another critic might have even called it a celebration of humanity." Well, another critic might need to be put down. My note for this part in the movie on my Google Doc was, do equals get put on stage and gawked at? When I showed my boyfriend this part for the first time, he said, "That's maximum cope," which frankly, I think is a great way of putting it. And then after Mr. Bennett's like, "Golly gosh,
well, I hope you'll rebuild,
you hoaxing, lying, scamming scoundrel," Barnum replies,
"Thank God for Jenny's tour. We can borrow off the profits. We'll be fine."
Didn't Zephron say,
"You're not going to see a penny of profit until your 40th show"?
And then didn't she say,
I'm done.
And then you said,
"You have to finish the tour. It will ruin me."
And then she said,
When you're careless with other people, Mr. Barnum, you bring ruin upon yourself.
Okay. So why would you think that you could borrow money from the profits? And why are you shocked when Bennett shows you the newspaper with a photograph that is clearly a drawing, by the way? I don't know what that's about. Underneath the headline, "Jenny Lind quits." So she didn't quit? Am I the only one who thought she quit because of the way she ended things? Like, I thought that the last performance was going to be the last performance because it was way too late to cancel it. I'm getting too hung up on the wrong thing here, I think. Anyway, Barnum runs on home, and they're being evicted from their mansion. His wife is rightfully pissed at him for not only the Jenny Lind thing, but putting business over the family. So she's leaving him. Her leaving him never happened in real life, so don't even worry about it. We then cut to Barnum, who is drinking himself silly at the bar. When his troupe comes in to lift his spirits, he says to them, "If you've come to get paid, I ain't got no money, all right? It's all gone." And Letty Lutz says,
"Our own mothers were ashamed of us, hid us our whole lives. Then you pull us out of the shadows, and now you're giving up on us too. Maybe you are a fraud. Maybe it was just about making a buck, but you gave us a real family."
I don't even know where to start with this one. How do you manage to position Barnum as a savior of these people and then admit Barnum is exploitative, but then say it's okay because we're doing found family as a theme in this film? It's giving, he's a good guy who just made some bad choices. He's not perfect, but who of us is?
We're laughing anyway, kids, so might as well get paid. Who's gonna pay admission if you're out there for all the world to see?
None of us are perfect. This is just a reminder that we're making a film about a guy who quite literally used an 18-year-old black man, William Henry Johnson, who was born with microcephaly, as an attraction and marketed him as the missing link in human evolution. Just remember this is about him, okay? So Barnum starts singing again. I think Genius.com once again summarizes the previous scene and current song with the appropriate emotional shallowness that kind of fits this vibe. After a devastating fire destroys the circus building, a depressed P.T. Barnum has his spirits lifted by the performers who declare that home wasn't a place, and as long as they had each other, they could feel loved, accepted, and happy. This encourages P.T. Barnum to race back to charity and explain himself while vowing to become a better man. Hugh's voice in this song at some points, I'm like, okay, slay Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis. Yes. And then in other parts, I'm like, why are you letting people do this to you? You're the Prime Minister of Australia. You can do whatever you want. I don't really like this song. Him and his wife get back together. Yay. The next day, back down at the museum, Zephron saves the day by revealing that he actually still has a share of the profits from the show and he's going to help them rebuild. But just before he does that, he gets this banger line, okay? Verbatim once again. "When I first met you, I had an inheritance, a claim, an invitation to every party in town. Now thanks to you, all that's gone. All that's left is friendship, love, and work that I adore. You brought joy into my life. When I
heard that line, I gasped like it was a jump scare in a horror film. This movie is just everyone on their knees with their mouths wide open waiting for Barnum. That's what this movie is. Please, sir, may I have more? This is when they realize they won't be able to afford to buy another building in New York because it's too expensive. So Barnum gets the whimsical idea to buy land near the docks and pitch a tent. Also, turns out Philip Carlyle's middle name is Bailey, who is Zephron's character if you've forgotten because I've just called him Zephron the entire video. So that's how they got the name Barnum and Bailey. OMG, that's like the real life circus. The Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey that ran for 154 years until it closed in 2017 due to dwindling attendance thanks to people drawing attention to the horrible animal cruelty that was taking place in the training. But don't worry, it opened again in 2023 with an animal-free show. That's good, I guess. I don't know what people like. The real story behind Barnum and Bailey is that Bailey in the title actually refers to James Anthony Bailey, who already had his own circus. Barnum's circus didn't even start until he was like in his 60s. He actually came out of retirement for it. This man just cannot stop. He just will not stop a grinding. His circus was called P.T. Barnum's Grand Traveling Museum, Menagerie, Caravan, Hippodrome, and Greatest Show on Earth. And other random variations of that name, which is a terrible one if you don't mind me shoving my opinion in there. Bailey's circus, which he had with another guy, was directly competing with P.T. Barnum's, and they went back and forth for a while, like trying to out-PR each other. So in the end, they decided that together, they were better. So they kissed and struck a deal. Bada bing, bada boom, Barnum and Bailey's circus was born. Yay, they got their tent and land, but it must have been expensive because they had to CGI Charles onto that awful CGI elephant. Good on Charles for knowing what he's worth. Getting paid in found family doesn't buy you a mansion or a yacht. There's a lot of elephant stuff in this scene, and during the course of the research for this video, I found out how elephants were trained. And look, I'll be honest, I will never be able to unsee that, and I can't imagine doing that to another living thing. Anyway, on a lighter note, Barnum gives his ringleader hat his ringleader hat to Zephron to pass the torch of the circus to him, of being the ringleader, the person who's like, ladies and gents, in the moment you waited for it. That's now Zephron, okay? That's now Zephron. He says that he's going to take a step back from the circus to be with his family and to be a present father. But apparently he still can't help showing up on the back of a circus elephant to his kid's ballet recital, a place, mind you, said kid got bullied at about coming from circus money.
Ew, something does smell. Oh, I know what it is. Peanuts.
Got him!
Thanks, Dad. Very helpful. And it's still you still doing PR for the circus. That's still PR. Where the else are you getting an elephant, bro? Like the kid's like, oh my gosh, yeah, we've accepted ourselves too. We don't care if people bully us. That was a great delivery. Clearly, you've never been a teenage girl. It's rough out there. The movie ends on Barnum watching his kids dance on stage, and one has been singled out to be the tree, the only tree, mind you. I'd be having a word to the teacher about that one. That's pretty rough. And with minimalistic music, we end on a shot where he quietly sings, "It's everything you ever want, it's everything you ever need, and it's here right in front of you." But instead of his show, it means his family now. We then fade out to a quote from the real P.T. Barnum. "The noblest art is that of making others happy." He's also attributed with saying, "There's a sucker born every minute," but I understand why he didn't use that one. Also, technically, there is no actual evidence of him saying that, but everyone reckons he did, so I don't know, I think it's funny. I hope he said that.
Here's a great line, so I'm not even into the first scene. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we offer you a story, a parable if you will, of a man caught between the real world and the world of his dreams, a world where anything is possible if you only believe."
You're laughing anyway, kids, so might as well get paid.
And then he starts singing again.
I just ate dinner, so...
Oh God, I do look like... I don't care. If you're watching at this point in the video, you don't care either, I'm sure. This version of the script is a really interesting mix of stuff. It's technically more faithful to history, but barely. Barnum is far more scammy in this version, and honestly, way more pathetic and insecure. The loose structure is kind of the same, but the scenes are pretty different. And the circus performers are still props to further Barnum's emotional arc, but they have a lot more lines. Charles is like a way bigger character in Barnum's life in this script. And Letty Lutz, you know, that shy wallflower who sings like an angel and Barnum kind of brings her out of her shell. Well, in this version, I can only picture her with Cynthia Erivo nails and a heavy New York accent. When we're introduced to her, it's not Barnum recruiting her. No, she just strolls into Barnum's museum and presents herself. Letty Lutz, nice to meet you. Let me get to the point, Mr. Barnum. I've never been one for self-pity or embarrassment, so when I read in the paper about folks paying good money to see a short man, a tall man, and a fat man, I thought, why should they be the only ones making out? Heck. I'm as weird as any of them. Okay, Diva, I'm immediately rooting for you and I hope you get everything you want out of life. There's definitely a problem with character arc outside of Barnum in both films, but particularly in the earlier drafts of this script. Letty Lutz, like, that's just what she's like the whole time. She's like, yeah, this is me. And what? And what? And she doesn't really have like an emotional arc. This script version of This Is Me is a song called Oddities. And I think This Is Me was a far later insert. So they actually had to change Letty Lutz's character to need to have the realization that this is her and she needs to send a flood and drown him out, you know. Talking about changed songs, Come Alive originally was about him, right? So it's not about him encouraging the performers to like come alive. It's about him and how hard done by he's been. So the lyrics are changed to, I stumbled through my days, had my head hung low. It's about him feeling like he's proving the haters wrong. When the museum burns down, there's a scene in this version of the script where they're inside the burning building between Barnum and Zephron's character. And the building is described as, quote, flames and smoke pour out the windows, right? Well, Zephron's character is inside trying to let all the animals out of their cages and he can't find the key. Like he's struggling to put the key in the lock or something. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't know what opens. He's struggling with the lock, okay? That's what it is. He's struggling. He's on Struggle Street. So they're really trying to negate the grotesque history of animals burning alive and stuff. Now, in this smoke-filled inferno, after Zephron has not seen Barnum in a few months because he's been on tour, Barnum says to Zephron, thanks for looking after things. See why that got cut? Here are some more of my favorite bad or corny exchanges in this draft. This one's when they arrive at Buckingham Palace between Zendaya and Zephron. Miss Wheeler, you look like royalty. I'm just an acrobat. No, in the aristocracy of talent, I would say you are a queen. Oh, kill it with fire. I hope that scene got cut because Zac Efron was like, I'm gonna have to charge you $12 more million if you're gonna make me say that. Like, if you were gonna make me say that with sincerity, hey, that's $7 extra million I'm gonna need in my contract. Okay. You know that insult of a monologue that Mr. Bennett gives at the grave site of the burnt down museum to Barnum? Well, in this version of the script, his name is Sam Roth, which, you know, fictional character. And this is his version of that monologue. You'll rebuild, I hope. You hate the circus. I did, at first. It's everything a critic's supposed to hate. Big, obvious, enjoyable, fun. But when they started protesting, I had to reconsider. What was going on inside those four walls was democracy at its finest. A celebration of humanity in every form. Big, small, bearded, whatever. And that scares people. That's why they burnt you down. It may not be art, and it's definitely lowbrow. But it ain't humbug. Yeah, I don't even know where to start with that one. If that's democracy, then I've got a real-life Fijian mermaid to sell you. Now, the rest of the scene is the same, with him being like, at least we can borrow from Jenny's tour. And then the reporter dude is like, haven't you heard? She quit. And then Hugh Jackman Barnum is shocked and confused. And we were confused as well, because we were like, well, she did quit, right? Well, those lines actually make sense in this version of the script, because in this version, Jenny Lind is a supervillain. When Barnum sees her for the first time at Buckingham Palace, he literally rolls his eyes when he finds out that she's a singer and only really becomes interested when like people are flocking to her. She also doesn't ever try to bond with him over being like from a similar background. Instead, she tries to charm his daughters and then asks him to go on tour with her because she doesn't really know anyone else in America. He wasn't originally going to go. And when she confesses her feelings to him in that scene, it's actually pretty different from the movie. He makes a point to say, "You'll continue the tour without me, right?" And she literally says, "Yeah, sure." And then as he leaves, you see her like decide that she's gonna with him on multiple levels. Jenny watches the door, wiping a single tear. Her expression hardens as she looks into the mirror. Thus, she kisses him in front of the cameras that night at the performance, like in the movie, but that's not the last time we hear from her in this version. Nay. Just after Barnum finds out that she's quit from the reporter, he runs on down to the docks to confront her before she gets on the boat back to Sweden. But in my head, when she delivers this dialogue, she is a sarcastic cartoon supervillain. Stop right there! You cannot leave! There are 40 cities left on your tour. If you break contract, I will sue you. I will sue you for everything you are worth. You've seen the papers this morning? That has nothing to do with our contract. Indeed it does, Mr. Barnum. Our contract has a morals clause which you have broken with your reckless display. My reputation has suffered irreparable harm. You should be glad I am not suing you. Jenny, please, you can't leave. I risked everything on this tour. As did I, Phineas. Jenny, seems we both lost. Jenny, don't. I'll lose the circus. I'll lose my home. You will ruin me. Maybe that's what I want. When you are careless with other people, Mr. Barnum, you bring ruin to yourself. Hey, that's 12 times worse than the movie that we got. I'll give him that. I'll give them that. That I will give. I forgot about this bit. After Charity leaves him, he mopes around the outside of their home, like outside of their foreclosed on mansion, and he does a reprise of A Million Dreams, but the lyrics are about just how he wrecked his marriage. I close my eyes and I can see a girl was waiting here for me. Now I'm all alone. This is my favorite bit. Now I know I've lost my mind. All these millions of dreams I chased were crazy. You were more than a million dreams combined. Also, remember the scene in the bar where Charles comes in and chats to Barnum and the rest of the circus performers lift his spirits? Thanks, genius. Well, Charles talks to him alone in this version, but for a lot longer. Here's a highlight of that. I'm a fraud, a charlatan, coarse, vulgar, borderline criminal. That's the good part. Underneath that, I'm nothing. Barely human. A freak. You know, a very unwise man once said to me, be proud of who you are. That's right, Barnum. You're a freak. You're a weirdo. You don't fit in. Welcome to the human race. This version of the script is very based on the class struggle of poor Barnum the millionaire, who just wanted to fit in with the upper class, but he's never truly treated like an equal. Almost like how society discriminates against the people who look like the performers in my show. What a parallel. How the tables have turned. You guys get me, right? No. No. There are a ton of changes that I will not harp on about, but in both, everything just revolves around him. Actually, one more bad line. Close to the end of the movie, Zephron's character utters the sentence, "It's good to have you back, PT." And you're watching the Disney What is happening? It's my bedtime, so I'm gonna try and make this quick. And I'm also gonna do it all the way from down here. God, editing me is gonna love this angle. Yes. Yeah. If I had to write an essay analyzing this movie and I wanted to get very high marks in creative thinking, I would say that the fact that this steers so clear of emotional complexity, historical accuracy, and then frames Barnum as the hero so abhorrently
even though he is the least interesting story we could be telling within the plethora of historical figures that surround him. That in itself is kind of P.T. Barnum. Right? The movie itself is P.T. Barnum. He made up crazy stories about the performers in his museum to market them better. And believe me, in his biography, he really tried to recontextualize a lot of his more questionable life events to try and lessen how bad they were. And he told so many different stories to so many different publications to drum up publicity. There's probably a ton of stuff we don't even know about or the truth of. So in analyzing it that way, hey, you really captured the spirit of Barnum, whether it was ironic or not. But this isn't purely a creative analysis. This is a YouTube video based on my feelings. They say feelings aren't facts, but I have some facts about my feelings, okay? And the fact is, I feel that I still like some of the soundtrack. But if I knew all of this stuff going into that first viewing and then watched as the film used Barnum's family, the circus members, and Jenny Lind, the evil temptress witch, as props to further this fuckhead millionaire's story and have zero conversation about the grey areas, I don't know what my opinion would have been. I have no idea. Well, it was 2017. My brain was a bit smooth back then, really. I don't know, maybe it would have had the same reaction. I don't know. We all live, we laugh, we learn, we grow, okay? That's life. But right now, I'm mainly just kind of pissed off that this dude who did some not so great stuff had his story sanitized and filtered through this like extreme white savior misogynist lens, and the fucking movie still has a soundtrack that bangs as hard as it does.
Why would you even say it's about P.T. Barnum?
Why not just change his name?
Well, I think actually the reason why they didn't end up changing the name was because I think they were just too attached to the concept. This is a complete, this is just me reading between the lines, because development was sparked in 2009, and then it was developed for yonkers and just in development hell by the sounds of it. I also think that potentially I'm extremely critical right now because I'm rereading The Phantom of Manhattan and rewatching the wonderful recording of Love Never Dies. I mean, just telling everything that I read, everything I'm consuming right now is just I hope you enjoyed staring at my butt just then. That's your bribe to subscribe. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I'm just consuming media right now that's just upset all the time. I'm just upset all the time. I'll see you in the next video. Like and subscribe. And I hope that you're doing okay wherever you are in the world. Share something nice down below if you made it this far about stuff. I don't know. All right. Bye.